Hi, and welcome today to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Terry Weber. I'm with the Work Life Elder Care Program. Today, our topic is difficult conversations, and to lead our discussion is Billie May and Debbie Kitchen. Both are with Aging Life Care Solutions. I'll be sending out a recording of this presentation later, along with a short survey. So, without further delay, take it away, Billie and Debbie.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to talk about various topics, and no one looks forward to this conversation with your parents or an older sibling, etc., because it can be uncomfortable. And a lot of people just don't know how to start the conversation. Where do we begin? So hopefully we can give you some food for thought. And maybe make it not as difficult as it sometimes can be. So, oops.
So it's never too soon to talk to your parents, your siblings, your children, relatives, friends. And really, the sooner you can have these conversations, the better. For the most part, what we're going to talk about is, these conversations is an opener. By no means can you have all of the conversations in one sitting. And hopefully, if you do it in advance, you avoid a crisis situation where decisions have to be made immediately. That always complicates things. So we're going to touch base on all of these issues, needs and goals of the person, their daily activities and how well they perform those, housing, such as assisted living, long-term care, financial and legal issues, medical care, and end-of-life care. So there's lots more issues that can be discussed, but these are the biggies that need to be included in any of these conversations.
And what you want to do is you want to plan ahead. And what that does, it ensures that the person, whether it be your mom, your dad, your parents, that they have a say in what they see as their future. So you want to start ahead of time. As Billie has said before, there's a crisis. It's much easier to have discussions when there is no problem or a crisis at hand. And that way that, people are like, oh, we've got to decide something now. So please start planning ahead of time. In a crisis situation, though, that may happen. And what you have to do is you just have to go ahead and have that conversation and don't put it off. Sometimes a crisis will be happening and you just have to go ahead and start that conversation at that moment versus, waiting.
So getting started, breaking the silence, that really depends on the situation and your relationship with the person. If matters are not pressing and you would rather use a less direct approach, there's kind of different ways to do that. So you might, if you're, for example, if your mom is frail and declining or maybe has a serious diagnosis, you might just say, Mom, given your health and what's been going on, I think we need to talk about some things. And asking for advice is generally a good way to open because parents typically like to give advice to the kids. So you might say, Dad, Tom and I are thinking about a retirement and what we need to have in place. And I was just wondering how you approach this. Do you worry about the cost of long-term care? Do you think you've saved enough? Do you think you would ever want to live in assisted living? And maybe that can help us make those decisions. Or you might just ask some general questions about your parents' life. What do they want out of the future? What are they worried about? Are there things they would like to make sure that are in place? Or you might be able to talk about someone else's situation. Maybe you could say, my coworker is having some issues with their parents, and kind of outline maybe a little scenario and say, what do you think? They're about your age. What do you think would be good advice for me to give them? If you've had another family member that's gone through maybe a crisis or had to make these big decisions, then you might bring them up and say, remember Aunt Sue, and she did these things. Did you agree with that? Do you think that would be something you would want to do? And you might even say, I saw a television show and explain this is what the plot line was, and did you see that? And that may be a good way to open up some discussion. If it's really difficult for you to do this face to face, you might even write down some key points that you would want your family member to think about and give it to them and say, these are some things that I think we need to discuss. Why don't you look at it and make some notes, and we'll come back and talk about it in a couple of weeks.
And then once you've thought about this, then it's like going, okay, when am I going to do this? When are we going to talk? What you want to make sure that you do is you want to pick a time when your parents are calm, when they're rested. Do they do better in the mornings? Do they do better in the afternoons, evenings? When are they at their best? And make sure there's not going to be any interruptions, like, okay, I know physical therapy is coming at such and such time. So you want to make sure that you're right there when they're at their rested. And what you don't want to do when you do come to talk to them is come with, hey, I got some quick solutions here. This is what needs to be done. You don't want to do that. Be open about the facts. You want to be gentle, but don't lie or hide any information. Mom, you got this diagnosis, or, looking at money options, what options are out there, looking at housing options. Again, this is, just start thinking about this kind of stuff. And definitely it may take 5 minutes or maybe an hour, but you want to end each discussion before you or your parent becomes tired, or they can become very overwhelmed, as you know. And then if they say, I don't want to talk about this, I'm not going to do this, just leave the conversation open to revisit the topic. Okay, then you can say, okay, just let us know when you're ready to, because we are concerned. So again, just leave it open for a revisit, not just to say, but we need to talk about this. So just stay as calm as you can and then come back at another time. This may give them opportunity to start thinking about that 10-minute conversation or that 1 hour conversation you've just had.
So however you start the conversation, it's really important to listen. And listen, be very present with your family member. You may have your opinion of what they need to do, but you need to listen to their answers to your questions or questions that they may have. For example, you might say, what do you worry about, Dad, as you're growing older? And then really listen, because you may think what they're worried about and what they want to do, and you may be totally off base. You might think that they're worried about their daily care, but maybe they're really worried about becoming a burden or being forgotten. Remember, it's a whole new stage of life for this person, and so they have a lot of fears and questions and doubts about what's best. And sometimes people don't, it's hard sometimes to have some insight into maybe difficulties they are having. So once you let them talk, try not to interrupt, try not to interject your own beliefs or your own thoughts about what they need, and then repeat back to them, maybe in your own words. So what I'm hearing you say is that not being a burden is the most important thing to you, or moving somewhere allows easier access and more, maybe some handicap access. So if you just listen and really be present and hear what they're saying, hopefully you'll get a good idea of kind of where to direct the conversation.
A lot of times, what we find when we meet with patients, our clients and their families is, the biggest thing is, what is your goal? What is it that you want? I want to stay at home. And then, that's where, different individuals, we would come in and see if that's feasible. When people have options, that really seems to kind of decrease the stress, the anxiety. So those are just some of the things as far as when you go initially and you want to listen to what they're having to say. The big thing is what not to do. Do not make the decisions for your parents. Don't come in just like going, okay, I already know that they can't stay at home. They need to go to assisted living. And then come with, all kinds of brochures. Okay, here we found an assisted living we really think that you'd like. It's got this or got that. They're not ready for that. Don't come with all the paperwork. Okay, here's this brochure at this place, and this one becomes very, very overwhelming. And of course, and we all know, we can't treat our parents like children. We can't nag them. We can't lecture them. Now, mom, dad, you can't do this. You can't stay here. Again, don't lecture. You want to, as Billie had said prior to, listen to what is it that you want to do. Try not to have a conversation during holiday celebrations, like, okay, all the siblings are here. It's Thanksgiving. Let's figure out what we need to do, mom and dad. Let's look at some ideas. And a big thing, and we've dealt with this a lot, is making promises. The promise that we hear that is so devastating is, mom, dad, we will never put you in a nursing home. Just, if you cannot do that, we would not, don't make that promise, because it cannot always be happening.
And things may happen that you can't keep that promise. And then that's going to make, a lot more guilt.
Mhm.
Because you feel like you've broken the promise. You may say, we'll do everything we can to avoid that, but you don't know what the future is going to hold. And there may come a situation where you don't have a choice. So, what to talk about? So, needs and goals really should be the initial starting point. What does your parent want most out of their life at the current time? So, do they want to travel? Do they want independence? Do they want to see family more? That's really going to guide the rest of the conversation and the planning process of knowing what they want. They may say, I just don't want to talk about it. This is too distressing. We'll just talk about it later. And you may have to say, okay, mom, but this is really important. And so I want you to think about it, and we'll come back in a few days, in a week or so, and have some more discussion, because it's really important that we have this conversation. Daily activities. So before you can plan the future, you need to see how is your parent functioning in the present. Are they able to do their own self-care? Can they bathe themselves, dress themselves, do any housework, do cooking, go to the grocery store, go to the the physician's office, do any social activities. How are they doing? And you may have to look around and get some cues from, are their clothes, dirty? Do they seem to be able to do housework? Are they able to do laundry? Is there food in the house? Are they losing weight? So some of those things can help you get an idea also of how they're managing their day-to-day activities. And then housing. And that's important. Discuss thoughts about current and future housing situation. Most people, not all, but will say, well, we want to stay in our home as long as we can. And occasionally you'll have somebody that say, this is too much. We want to move to a assisted living or retirement community. But it's important to have those conversations about, well, what's available? These are options. And so you may want to be sure that you've educated yourself before the conversation, so you can say, well, this is, what different levels of assisted living. And there usually are some people, some professionals in the community that may be able to help you if you're not, because it can be confusing. What's assisted living? What's personal care? Somebody may want to stay in their house, but they can have some non-medical caregivers come in and do certain things for them. There may be a service for people will go to the grocery store, or there's some different meal preparations. So kind of knowing what's available so you can talk to your parents or whomever about, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So they know what options are out there. Some people frequently, when you talk about assisted living, people think that means long-term care. That means nursing home. We've had a lot of clients that say, well, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. And if you have an opportunity to either take them on a tour or show them maybe a virtual tour or some brochures to see, oh, well, I thought it was different. I didn't realize it was this.
It's interesting that how many children, clients think that it's either living in your home or going to a nursing home. There's no in between. And educating, and we do a lot of education with that, which seems to put individuals at ease. That's like, okay, so there are other options. That all of these that we're talking about these are common problems, and everything is manageable with some kind of a solution. The next thing you'll at one time want to talk about, again, not all in the same conversation on the same day at the same time, are the financial and legal issues. Discuss what their current and potential future needs are. Mom, dad, what do you want to do? Oh, you want to travel? Okay. Do you want to stay in the house? You want to fix this up? Okay. Well, we think we might need to move. Do they have all their necessary legal papers? Do they have a POA, their wills, advance directives? The big thing is do they have an elder care lawyer? We really highly recommend elder care lawyers. They know the law. They can help with planning and guidance. They can help relieve the fear of long-term care. So kind of getting into the financial state also will help them. Medical care. Does your parent have a primary care physician? This is so important. A primary care physician is the main one that you'll be communicating with. They coordinate their care needs, referrals, etc. Has your parent named a healthcare proxy? How aggressive do you want this to be? Has your parents expressed their goals concerning medical care? Mobility, independent. I want to stay as mobile as can be. I want to be independent as I can be. So you want to discuss those very important medical care issues with them.
Just that's that's really important, like Debbie said, is to have those discussions. It's important to have, advanced directives, living wills, healthcare proxy, but it's as important, or probably more important, to have the discussion with your parent, family member, whomever, about what they would want and wouldn't want. Because so many times we've seen people in the hospital and it's coming to a decision point of whether to put someone on artificial nutrition or put them on mechanical ventilation. And you talk to the family and you say, what would they want? And maybe the children say, we don't know. We never had that discussion. Mom and dad never wanted to discuss it, or we never wanted to discuss it. And so we never talked about it. And sometimes people will say, well, we've asked the older person, what decisions would you want your children to make? Well, they'll know what to do.
Mhm.
And maybe they've never had that discussion. And so it puts a lot of guilt and pressure on the family members that have to make those decisions if they don't know what their parent wants. If you know what your parent wants or your family member wants, then you're just carrying out their wishes. But if you don't know, then the burden falls on you to make the decision, and it's really difficult. So that's, I think, really important.
Hey, Billy,
Yeah.
quick question in the chat box.
Okay.
Do you recommend that I speak with my mom about an elder care lawyer? She has all of the paperwork. I am her POA. I have questions. Hold on, I have to go down. I have questions about how to save her assets were she have to be placed somewhere.
I would recommend it. And most elder care lawyers that we've worked with will do that initial consultation, possibly even at no charge
Mhm.
or a minimal fee, because it may be that you have everything in place and so there's nothing more to do. But it's better to find out before you maybe come to a crisis and make sure that everything is. I know elder care lawyers are really opinionated, might be too strong a word, but they like their power of attorneys. They like them set up a certain way to make sure they cover different scenarios. So
Right.
it may just be making sure you have everything that you need.
Okay. Do you have a list of elder law attorneys? I have a list that have done lunch and learns for us in the past.
Uh-huh.
But do you have a list of elder law attorneys in Lexington?
Yes.
Is that something you could send out to?
Sure, we can.
or-
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have another question. What is a healthcare proxy?
That is a healthcare surrogate. It's really the same thing, healthcare power of attorney. It's just naming someone who can make medical decisions if you are not able to make them.
And last question regarding this medical thing. How do you have the conversation with a person with dementia that can no longer be cared for at home? They need a long-term facility.
Or a dementia care facility.
Long-term care facility, my guess is, yeah, either one. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Well, a lot of this isn't going to apply because they're not able to
Make decisions.
Yeah. If they're not decisional, and understand, because a lot of, with dementia, people will lose their ability to have insight into their situation. So they may think they're doing fine, but that they're not. And so that's when it's really important that prior to their losing that decisional capacity, that they have named a power of attorney that can make decisions if they're not able. Because sometimes you have to make a difficult decision that the family member may not understand, may not agree with, but it's, they're not safe maybe in their current living arrangement. And so you have to move them. And that, of course, it gets really difficult, but
And it can also be very difficult when there's several different siblings and they're not agreeing. Like, no, I don't want to put, dad in a memory care. No, I don't want to have them go to a nursing home. No, we want to keep them at home. So things can get kind of heated, a lot of guilt, conflict can occur. So if you can get that POA, that healthcare surrogate, before this, I would say, a crisis situation, that would be highly recommended.
because if they don't have a POA, but they've lost that capacity to name someone in the POA, then you have to get into the guardianship, emergency guardianship into the court system, which is not ideal. So you want to try to avoid that by having a POA. And, a lot of times elderly people, well, non-elderly also, but they're reluctant maybe to name a POA because they don't understand. They think then somebody's going to come in and make them do things. And it's really, if they're unable to make those decisions, that's when the POA comes into effect. So, you want to make sure you have a good one. You don't just pull something off the internet and sign it. So, and having the conversations early, and it depends on what level of dementia, how advanced the dementia is, but.
Yeah.
And,
so hence the elder law attorney.
Yeah. And there are some resources there, depending on where you live, of kind of dementia specialists that maybe can come in and help, that are really expert at helping those conversations.
Yeah.
Or teaching you what words to use and how to approach things.
We have used that with just a recent client. The mother had very advanced dementia. Her husband was the caregiver. The two children did not live in the area. So we contacted a dementia specialist who was able to come and work with the family and help them with communication, particularly with the father. What are the options, and help guide them. And it was so helpful for those boys and the husband. So there are that resources out there, which is excellent.
Yeah. Let's do one more. We've got lots of questions in the chat box, but how about we take one more and then we'll continue with the presentation, and then we'll catch up the questions at the end.
Okay.
But keep typing your questions in the chat box, folks. This is great. So is long-term care insurance recommended, and can it be obtained at any age?
Well, it is recommended, but it is very expensive, and
Each policy is so different.
it's so different that you have to really work with the insurance agent, make sure you understand it, because some of them have kind of a waiting period. So, and kind of like a deductible. So you maybe have to wait 3 months and shell out so much of your own money before it's going to kick in. And then knowing when will it kick in, if there may be the need for assistance in 2 activities of daily living, like showering, toileting.
If they're at home.
If they're at home.
Yeah.
Or if they're in assisted living, do they need assistance with, so many activities of daily living? Some they may need assistance with 2, some they may need 4. The policies are different. Some policies include like grocery, if they're unable to grocery shop for themselves, and some don't. So I think it's harder. Of course, it's much more expensive and harder to qualify the older you are, and it is expensive.
It doesn't hurt to at least start looking start making your pros and cons list with some of the different insurance agencies and see what they have, and keeping in mind the cost, criteria as far as when the assistance would kick in, because truly it is so different with every policy that we've seen as
Mhm.
we work with our clients. So I would just start making some calls, jot down your questions, and just say, this is what we want to address, and what can you tell us?
And then kind of educate yourself. If someone, let's say they're a veteran, there may be some benefits, some VA benefits that you can tap into.
Yeah.
And then we're certainly not insurance experts, but some life insurance, you can get a long-term care rider on that. So just kind of, talking to an insurance agent will help if that's something that's feasible. And then looking at VA benefits, if your loved one has been a veteran and can access those.
And that's a really good resource, is the VA benefits.
And end of life care, long-term care is very, very expensive, can be very, very expensive. So it's important to have those conversations. That's another place that an elder law attorney can help, and help you understand if qualifying for Medicaid is possible. And sometimes there are some ways to set up trusts, etc., so that at some point the person may not have to spend every penny they have to qualify for Medicaid. And then having discussions with your parent about, what frightens them about dying. Some people may say, I'm not really afraid of dying. I'm just afraid I'll be in pain. Or some people may have some unresolved issues, maybe spiritual, or maybe some unfinished problems with family members that they need to settle before they feel at peace. So that is important to talk about what's frightens them about dying, and then what quality of life is acceptable. Someone may say, well, if I can't go out in the yard and sit, then I wouldn't want to live. If I have to be in bed all the time. Someone else may say, I'm fine being in bed all the time as long as I'm not in pain. Some people may say, I want to live at all costs as long as I can. So that's very important to know what's acceptable for your family member. And then have those discussions with their physician, so the physician's aware also. How aggressive, like I think Debbie mentioned, how aggressive do they want their medical care to be at the end of life?
What if your parents refuse to discuss any issues, which very well may happen? A suggestion is you write down what your concerns are, and then set priorities on what you want to discuss with them. You won't want to go in and discuss, okay, let's talk about housing, let's talk about your medical care, let's talk about end of life. Set the priorities on what you think may be a priority for your parents. Grant them some protection if they deny. If they say, oh, let's not talk about such things. Okay, all right. That's a coping mechanism with them. Be patient and try to discuss their fears and the reasons that they may not want to discuss the issues. Mom, Dad, I understand, kind of think about, what scares you? What is it that you want? Remind your parents that you care and you want to be helpful. Ask them to think about what matters. Again, give it back to them. what is their big fear, or what is their big concern? Bring the topic up again in a few weeks. If they say, nope, don't want to talk about it. Nope, nope. Okay, just let it ride for a while. Evaluate if your parents would be more receptive to talking to another individual. Say, for example, there's multiple siblings. Would one be more appropriate for finances? We see that a lot. Would one be more appropriate to discuss about medical issues? Or someone that's not even within the family. We have come in, families have had us come in because we're not a family member, and we can give an objective view with objective options. And that has seemed to be helpful and accepting by the different individuals. Now, one of the big things is that you may have to prepare to plan without your parents' input. And the biggest thing we see is driving. That it's not safe for them or anyone else, and that's a whole nother PowerPoint on that issue right there. And we see that a lot, and there are ways around it, and it's not fun, because that's their independence. But that again is a whole nother conversation.
But like Debbie said, you may have to have a plan. For example, if you have parents and one of them is, more frail, needs more help than the other, what happens if the caregiver has a heart attack, goes to the hospital? Have a plan. Even if they won't talk about it, then what are we going to do? What's available? What options are available? Excuse me. If dad has to go to the hospital and then there's no one to take care of mom, know what kind of care she would need. Is it possible to do a respite, say in an assisted living or personal care, or to hire someone to come in and take care of them? So to kind of know, instead of just being called, oh no, now what am I going to do? Especially if you live out of town from your parents and there's no close family that can step in. And so you got to get maybe a long drive, or you have to get a plane and get what's going to happen in the meantime. There may be, like Debbie said, there may be a pastor, a clergy, a lawyer, a good friend that can assist with these conversations, that they may listen to more. Sometimes parents, even though you may be grown up, your parents still may see you as a child. And so they don't want, you don't want to become your parent's parent, and they don't want you to do that either. So try to evaluate if there's not someone else that can help, and then develop a plan, and then revisit, pick maybe one little piece of the pie and just have a conversation about that. And then how you can work it into conversations. And it may take, weeks or months if you have that luxury to get through a topic, but it's really important to keep those lines of communication open. So, are there more questions?
Hi, yes, let me get up here. So, okay, somebody did ask about the car keys, and I know you said that you're right. We've had whole lunch and learns just on that one little topic, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I did suggest to her, you always get the doctor on your side, try to have them talk. The medical affidavit is always a last resort thing, that type of thing. There are driving I don't understand who does these jobs or how they have the bravery to get in a car with somebody and say, take me around. But they do have people who will, go out and drive with these folks, and they will say yes or no, you can drive or not.
Like Cardinal Hill has in their occupational therapy department, they have an occupational therapist that does exactly that. I mean, they have, before they get in the car, they have like an evaluation, and then
Yeah.
they go out and
Yeah.
determine. So that is a good option with,
Yeah, they're now with UK. That has
Okay.
been flipped over to UK now.
Okay. Oh, that's, you know what? That's right. I remember now.
Yeah.
Colin,
Yeah, that's not.
a couple months ago on that. Yes.
I don't know if everybody saw, but did you guys see? I should have sent you this to Billie and Debbie. I should have sent this article I saw the other day about now this is for us. Do we know when it's going to be time to give up the keys? Or are we going to be one of those people like parents who are saying, no, 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 you're not taking my car? And the suggestion in the paper, and I'll send you this article, I think it was the Washington Post, you do an advance directive on driving with your kids. And it's kind of like something you write out, and then it's kind of a reminder, now, once dementia gets going, is that even going to be, they can come up with all sorts of things, but I thought it was an interesting idea. Here's another question. How do you help align siblings around parents' wishes to stay at home or move with near another child? How do you help align siblings around parents' wishes to stay at home or move with another child?
Well,
That can be a challenge. Maybe you don't have a really good relationship with that sibling anyway. And so again, just trying to have conversations with your sibling, with the siblings, and if you can get them to understand why your parents are making those decisions, and sometimes maybe the kids maybe all agree, but the parents don't, but the parents are competent to make their own decisions. You may have to let them fail. And we've had situations, and it's not ideal by any means, is that a kind of a crisis has to occur before the parents willing to make a change. But you don't want that to happen, of course, but just having conversations, making sure, you're educated on what's available. And if you feel like maybe the person's capable of staying at home, but one family member doesn't want them to, just ongoing conversations, and try not to be, accusatory. And sometimes that's hard if you don't have a really good relationship with your sibling.
sometimes, depending on the siblings, one wants this, wants the other. Sometimes we've had to give them someone to come in and show them pros and cons.
Like a mediation.
Mediation. We have had different families do mediation to, when there is a conflict, and we have had that conflict. And this just with them alone is not going to solve anything. So a mediation is definitely sometimes a last resort, and it's the best resort for your family members.
That's a good suggestion.
Mhm.
That's a really good suggestion, yeah. Okay, so that is always a hard situation when you can't get
Right.
everybody on the same page.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the parents, yeah, and the parents are kind of at the middle of all this.
And they don't want to make any of their children mad.
Right.
So, but
Right. My in-laws are both elderly, and my mother-in-law is dealing with the beginnings of dementia. They are arguing constantly with each other. Is that something that goes along with the dementia, or how do I help them get along better? Ooh,
One thing that might help is the person, the spouse without dementia, if there's a way to help them learn how best to deal with their spouse, and that's going to be hard because they've been married for very long. They have, their own communications. Is this new, or have they always argued? But sometimes it's hard for someone to kind of change those communication patterns and realize that the person with the dementia maybe doesn't, they're not communicating like they did in the past. And so you may have to change they're not going to be able to change their style of communication, but say if it's a husband and wife, maybe that wife's got dementia, the husband's going to have to learn how to communicate and not argue. And so, there's hopefully maybe a support group for that person to go to talk to other people who have dealt with a spouse with dementia, and how did they do it? And
Yeah, and what the biggest concern is, or the biggest issue is that the educating the individual that does not have the dementia on what is dementia, why are they doing this, and as Billie had said, then what are those ways to communicate. We had an individual who would argue with his wife. We gave all kinds of options. Education, was it followed? No. So it's very challenging, but where you need to start is with the person that does not have the dementia, to say, okay, this is what's going on. Here's ways to communicate. And there are resources out there that definitely help with that, because it is so frustrating. Because arguing is not going to do anything. It's just going to make the person with dementia more and more frustrated, because you've got to go into their world.
that's right, yeah. There's a new group. I don't know if these in-laws live in Lexington or the area, but there is a new early dementia care group for both the person with dementia and for their care partner. And I think it's the second Tuesday of the month. But Kim, if you want to reach out to me later, I can send you that flyer, or I posted it on our Facebook page the other day, I think, or it will be coming up on our Facebook page soon. But anyhow, that, like Debbie said, that might be a good idea to get into a group and talk to others how they dealt with this situation. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. Oh, my mother gets very angry when I try to help her. Typically, I just have to hang up the phone or leave if we are speaking in person. If she won't listen, what am I supposed to do? I am her POA, but she still has to consent to certain things. For example, our financial advisor will not make any decisions without her consent. My POA is apparently useless in this scenario, other than allowing me to access her account information.
That's tough. Does the mother have some dementia, or is she cognitively?
Let me see. She doesn't say in that particular one. It doesn't say. I don't know.
Okay.
because is she making bad decisions, or is she cognitively unable to, make good decisions? Because we had a friend whose mother got caught up in some scams, and she was competent to make her own decision, but she kept falling for these, I want to marry you, send me $1,000, you know, those kind of scams. And to where she was really in danger of spending all of her money. And the friend had to get involved with getting guardianship of her mother for a time period. And then her mother was able to get her own power of attorney back. But, you know, so it depends on, is the person not competent to make decisions, or are they just making bad decisions that can make, you know, and but yeah.
Elder care lawyer.
Maybe an elder
Yeah.
care lawyer might help with some of, you know, helping guide. Maybe having a discussion with the financial advisor. You know, if they know the people involved, they may be able to maybe give some advice.
Again, like Billie had said, it's, you know, is it just dangerous financial decisions that they're making? You know, just it depends on what's going on in that situation and the cognition, the cognitive ability of the mother.
That's a hard one, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So we have another question. Are there resources out there to help a family member who has dementia, who has expressed they want to stay in their home? My father seems to be declining. Hold on, I jumped ahead of this thing. Okay, I completely lost it. I'm sorry. Who has expressed they want to stay in their home. My father seems to be declining. We have an in-home caregiver who stops by a few times a week, and I'm concerned he needs someone with him more. I'm his legal guardian.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like what the geriatric care manager does, but having someone come in and say, first of all, safety is always number one. Are they safe to stay in their home? And it may be that, yes, they're safe, but they need someone coming in every day. And so, you know, putting that in place.
And that's what Billie and I so much, that's a lot of what we do
Lot of
is
what
we come in and, you know, we do an evaluation. We look at options, what, you know, what is going on exactly with the individual with dementia. You know, here are options to keep them safe, you know, and we always tweak plans. I mean, we've had, you know, families that, you know, put cameras in. You know, we, you know, Billie and I go once a week to check on them. What are the options that are out there? And if it comes to the point of where they are truly not safe at all, that they need a higher level of care, whether that be dementia care, you know, long-term care, whatever it is, you know, there's guidance for that, looking at criteria, but safety and is the biggest thing, you know, nutrition and ADLs, etc. So it's time to bring in someone at that point, because there's so much out there that you just don't even know where to start. Where do I even begin? Oh, okay, this might be manageable for 2 months, you know, for their safety. And then we can reevaluate what would be the next best step.
So, Aging Life Care Solutions might be someone to talk to.
I mean,
Hence Billie and
that's what we
Debbie.
do. That's 90% of what
Yeah.
we do is help look at options and guide clients and families, because it's so tough.
Okay, so moving on, I have one parent who is a caregiver in a caregiver position and the other has dementia and needs more care. Any suggestions for talking to the caregiver about getting outside help when they think everything is fine?
Oh,
It's another tough one.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Ooh, they
But-
got some great questions today,
Yeah,
They
guys.
are
These
great.
really
And they're, I mean, that's real life. That's what goes on is, help. And it's hard because the caregiver spouse thinks, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And everything's okay. And they, if you can just have discussions about the need for them to have, how hard it is. And it's hard to be around the clock caregiver for anyone. And then especially, someone as they're getting older, is that they need to take care of themselves, because if something happens to them, then what's going to happen? Then the spouse may have to go to a long-term care facility. So sometimes that helps to say, if something happens to you, if you get sick or worn down, then that's, not going to be a good outcome. Sometimes that'll help. If you can accept just a little help so that you can get a rest, then hopefully, you can stay in your home longer. You can provide that care a little bit longer, but the dementia is going to progress, unfortunately. And so more and more help's going to be needed. So, if you can just add on.
Dad, would you consider having someone come in? I'll just throw it out, 4 hours twice a week, for companionship, or to kind of prepare some meals, just to give you a break, just to see if that will lighten your load a little bit. Would you think about that? Give it a try. Nothing is in writing. Just give it a try, or see, what do you think would be needed, to help you and mom, so that you could stay longer in the house, give you a little bit of rest. And again, Dad, what if something happens to you? What are the steps to take?
And unfortunately, the statistics are that it's more often than not, the caregiver spouse gets sick or dies before maybe the spouse with dementia, because of that stress and work. And so that may be a way to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think lots of people. Thank you, Debbie and Billy, for this presentation. Very helpful. Lots of people had to pop off now. Other meetings, 1 o'clock, lunch is over type thing. So, wow, that was really a lot of information on a difficult topic in a short period of time. We covered a lot of territory.
Terry,
But I just
Terry,
was
I,
going to
I
say
just
thank you. Oh, yeah.
I was just going to see if they wanted to answer that last question, and we can just have it on the recording for people to listen to later.
Oh, sure. Did I miss a question? I got thank you. My last thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank for the survey for the nutrition. Okay. What question am I missing?
It's how do you deal with a person who is elderly, 90 plus, mentally competent, who lives in their own home with so much clutter that their kids feel the environment is unsafe? The clutter in
Yes.
question are possessions from the past, old dolls, out-of-date electronics, etc.
Oh, have we dealt with this?
Collectors.
Yes. Part of it is, are they able to maneuver around their home safely? Like if they need assistive device, a walker, or a cane, can they get around, safely? If not, maybe you can negotiate. Can we just move a few of these things to clear a good path through the house?
Is it safe for cooking? I mean, do they have things sitting on the stove, etc.? Like all of these.
You know, and so, you know, Mom, is it okay? I don't want to get rid of these things, but is it okay if we box some of them up or move them? Maybe in a storage room or something, so you'll have a good way to, you know, get around your home safely. And just kind of start there.
Just a little step at a time. There are companies out there that help with organizing. Again, is that person open to that? But the big thing is the safety, you know.
And I don't know that this would work, but you may say, Mom, I really like these dolls. Can I take some of them? I would love to have them. I don't know, that might be a way to clear a little bit of the clutter out. They may say, no, I want them right here. But it might be worth a try.
You know, just look at what's sitting around and think, what are the options? Because they're 90-year-old, they're 90s, they're not going to change what they've been doing. So can we negotiate and move this over to this room where you're not in there so much? Because I'm afraid if you fall and break a hip, then you won't be returning home. So what do you think, Mom or Dad, can be done to make where you are safer from falls, from a fire, that kind of stuff?